Welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to learn how to negotiate like our lives depend on it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
High stakes.
Our guide today is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, a former FBI hostage negotiator.
Right.
You know, that whole high stakes thing.
Yeah.
But what's really cool is that his approach kind of translates to situations you and I face every day.
Yeah,
Think asking for a raise
absolutely.
or even haggling for a better price at that flea market you love.
Yep.
So it can be anything, big or small.
It's fascinating how Voss actually started out questioning the very methods that he was taught at Harvard Law School.
Oh, wow.
They were all about finding that middle ground, making concessions,
Yeah.
and ultimately aiming for yes.
Right, like the classic win-win scenario.
Something.
But Voss found something really interesting during a mock kidnapping exercise with Harvard professors.
Okay.
They told him, "We've got your son, give us $1 million or he dies."
Wow.
Pretty intense, right?
Yeah.
So this is where it gets really interesting. Voss, instead of playing along with their textbook tactics, had this internal aha moment.
Yeah.
He realized that real-world kidnappers, they aren't driven purely by logic.
Right.
Their motivations are much more complex
Uh-huh.
and deeply rooted in emotion.
For sure.
So you can't just bargain with them like you're splitting the pizza.
Right. Yeah.
Can't. Okay, so emotions matter. Got it. But Voss takes it a step further with this almost counterintuitive idea.
Yeah.
He says getting to know is actually more valuable than getting to yes, especially early in the negotiation.
That's right.
Now, I know you're thinking, isn't the goal to get them to say yes?
I think most people would think that, yeah.
Exactly.
But think about it, though.
Okay.
When someone pushes you for a yes, it often feels like you're losing control, right?
Yeah.
It creates this sense of defensiveness. But when you're allowed to say no, it's like a pressure valve releasing.
Mm-hmm.
You feel a sense of agency, and that actually builds trust.
It's kind of like when you're dealing with a pushy salesperson and you just want to get them off your back.
Absolutely.
Like that no becomes your shield.
Yeah, it's like a boundary.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Voss's journey to this understanding is fascinating in itself.
Okay.
He credits his time at a suicide hotline, of all places, as the starting point for his negotiation expertise.
Wait, a suicide hotline? That seems like a totally different world from hostage negotiation.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the hotline, Voss learned how to navigate intense emotions,
Yeah.
understand those hidden motivations that we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
and de-escalate highly charged situations. He realized these were essential skills in any negotiation, not just life or death scenarios.
Wow. So it's all about tapping into the human element.
Yeah.
But let's get back to this power of no thing.
Okay.
Voss doesn't just talk about it. He backs it up with real-world examples.
He does, yeah.
He talks about this political fundraiser who was struggling to get donations until they completely flipped their script.
Yeah.
Instead of asking those typical yes-oriented questions like, would you like to contribute to our campaign?
Right.
They started asking no-oriented questions.
Yeah.
Like, are you happy with the current state of the economy?
Okay.
Or do you think the country is headed in the right direction?
Right.
So it's like they're turning the tables. Instead of asking for money directly, they're getting people to confront their dissatisfaction,
Yeah.
which then naturally leads them to wanting to contribute.
It forces them to kind of think about, like, what's wrong,
Yeah.
and then how can we fix it?
Yeah,
Exactly. It's a subtle shift, but it makes a world of difference.
it does.
And you've probably experienced this yourself with those annoying telemarketing calls.
Oh, tell me about it.
Their entire script is designed to funnel you towards yes, leaving you feeling annoyed and cornered.
Oh, yeah. It's like they're reading from a manipulation manual.
Well, Voss is shining a light on these tactics. The more aware you are of them, the better equipped you are to handle them. But he doesn't stop there. He introduces this concept of tactical empathy.
So it's not just about saying no. It's about understanding the other person's point of view, even if you don't agree with them.
It's about building that connection and using it to influence the negotiation.
Okay.
You're not just trying to win. You're trying to understand their needs, their fears, even their hopes. And Voss gives us some cool tools to do just that. One of them is mirroring.
Mirroring. Is that like when you copy someone's body language to make them feel comfortable?
It can be, but Voss is talking about something even simpler.
Okay.
You just repeat the last 3 words of what someone says.
Really? Just 3 words?
Sounds almost too easy, right?
Yeah.
but it triggers this mirroring instinct, making people feel heard
Right.
and encouraging them to elaborate. It's like a magic trick to get them to open up.
I'm going to have to try this out.
You should, yeah.
Yeah.
It works. There was this study with waiters who mirrored their customers,
Okay.
and they received significantly higher tips than those who didn't.
Wow.
It's a subtle way of building rapport
Okay.
and creating a sense of understanding.
Okay, I'm sold on mirroring. What other tricks does Voss have up his sleeve?
Another powerful technique is labeling.
Labeling.
This is where you give a name to someone's emotion.
Mm.
So if someone seems frustrated, you might say, it sounds like you're feeling a bit frustrated with the situation.
It's like you're acknowledging their feelings without judgment, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it works wonders. It validates the other person's emotions,
Yeah.
disarms negativity,
Uh-huh.
and creates the shortcut to intimacy. Remember that feeling when you're in class and you're terrified of being called on, and the teacher says something like, I know some of you might be feeling a bit apprehensive about participating.
Oh, yeah. It instantly takes the pressure off. You feel seen and understood.
And that's precisely what labeling does in a negotiation. It creates a safe space for honest communication.
Right.
And again, Voss isn't just talk theory, he gives us real-world proof.
Uh-huh.
He tells this great story about TJ, a ticket salesman for the New York Giants who had to call up season ticket holders
Yeah.
who were behind on payments.
Okay.
He was using this super aggressive script, and it was backfiring big time.
Yeah, that sounds rough. Debt collection is never fun for anyone involved.
Right. So Voss helped TJ revamp his script, incorporating labels and mirrors.
Okay.
Instead of just demanding payment, TJ started acknowledging the fans' tough times and framing the debt as a problem they could solve together.
So he turned it into a collaborative effort, like they were on the same team.
Exactly.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
results were amazing. Not only was TJ able to set up payment plans with almost everyone he called, he even got compliments from the Giants CFO
Really?
for his human touch.
That's incredible. It really shows the power of these techniques. So we've got mirroring, labeling, what else?
Well, Voss then introduces the idea of calibrated questions.
Calibrated questions.
These are open-ended questions that start with how or what, and they're designed to get the other person thinking and problem-solving for you.
Okay, give me an example. How does this work in practice?
He tells this hilarious story about his student, Ryan, who was on standby for a flight to Austin.
Oh, man, I've been there. That standby anxiety is the worst.
Right. But Ryan, instead of getting demanding or pleading, he started using calibrated questions.
Okay.
He asked the gate agent things like, what would it take for me to get on this flight, and how could we possibly work this out?
He's putting the ball in the gate agent's court,
Exactly.
making them feel like they're in control.
Exactly. And you know what? It worked.
Did it really?
The gate agent, feeling empowered, actually found Ryan a seat, and not just any seat, a seat in Economy Plus.
No way. That's amazing. So by asking the right questions, you can actually influence the outcome without even having to demand anything.
It's about guiding the other person to the solution you want, making them feel like it was their idea all along.
I love it. Okay, so we've got calibrated questions. What other negotiation gems does Voss have for us?
Well, he then gets into this idea of uncovering black swans, which are those crucial pieces of information that, once uncovered, can completely shift the power dynamic in a negotiation.
Okay, black swans. I'm intrigued. But before we dive into that, let's take a quick break and come back to this in part 2. All right, we're back and ready to uncover those mysterious black swans you mentioned before.
Yes.
What exactly are we talking about here?
Okay, so imagine a world where you believe all swans were white,
Okay.
because that's all you'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, bam, you encounter a black swan.
Whoa.
It completely shatters your assumptions.
It does.
That's what Voss is getting at.
Okay.
Black swans are those hidden pieces of information
Okay.
or unexpected events that can completely change the game in a negotiation.
So it's about challenging our assumptions and looking for those things that could completely flip the script.
Yeah.
But how do we actually find these black swans? They're hidden, after all.
It starts with understanding that seemingly irrational behavior from the other side is often a clue.
Okay.
So instead of writing them off as crazy,
Right.
ask yourself, what information am I missing?
Okay.
What hidden constraints or desires could be driving this?
Mm-hmm.
Voss actually uses a really tragic story to illustrate how failing to uncover black swans can lead to disastrous consequences.
Okay.
It's about a bank robbery hostage situation.
Oh, wow. That sounds intense. What happened?
The negotiators in this case were working under the assumption that the hostage taker would never harm the hostages, because historically hostage takers rarely resorted to violence.
Right.
But they were wrong.
Okay.
This hostage taker was driven by a hidden motive: revenge.
So their assumptions blinded them to the reality of the situation.
Exactly. And tragically, it cost a hostage their life. The takeaway here is that every negotiation is unique.
Right.
Those assumptions, no matter how well-founded they seem, can be dangerous.
Okay, that's a powerful lesson.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears to a more positive example.
Sure.
Voss tells another story about one of his students who was negotiating the purchase of a building.
Okay.
The sellers seemed totally unreasonable, asking way above market value.
Right.
But instead of walking away, the student kept digging,
Yeah.
asking what seemed like casual questions
Yeah.
about the seller, their connection to the property, their future plans, that sort of thing.
Right.
And through those seemingly harmless questions, he uncovered several black swans.
Wow.
The seller was under intense pressure from their family to sell quickly.
Oh.
They had this deep emotional attachment to the building,
Right.
which inflated its value in their mind.
Right.
And they were working with some bad information about recent sales in the area.
Interesting.
So it wasn't about greed or stubbornness.
Yeah.
There were these underlying factors at play that explained their crazy behavior.
Exactly.
Okay.
Armed with this newfound knowledge, the student was able to restructure the deal, address the seller's emotional needs, and get the building at a fair price.
Wow.
It's a win-win thanks to those black swans.
It's like detective work.
It is.
You've got to piece together the clues to understand the full picture.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not just about uncovering facts. It's about understanding their worldview, their religion, as Voss calls it.
Right.
And he has this incredible story about a tobacco farmer
Yes.
to illustrate this point.
Oh, yes. The farmer who drove his tractor to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
and threatened to blow it up with organophosphate bombs
Right.
to protest government policies that were hurting tobacco farmers?
Yeah, most people would probably label him as irrational or even dangerous.
Yeah.
I can see why. Driving a tractor with bombs to the nation's capital sounds pretty extreme.
For sure. But Voss, instead of dismissing the farmer,
Okay.
focused on understanding his religion.
Okay.
He realized the farmer was deeply connected to his land, his way of life, and he felt betrayed by the government.
So it was about more than just policies.
Yeah.
It was about his identity, his sense of purpose.
Exactly.
Okay.
And by understanding that Voss and his team were able to talk to the farmer, acknowledge his pain, and eventually convince him to surrender peacefully.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So sometimes the most effective negotiation tactic is simply to listen,
Yeah.
to truly understand where the other person is coming from.
It's about seeing the world through their eyes,
Right.
connecting with their humanity.
Okay.
But Voss doesn't stop there. He goes on to talk about bending reality
Okay.
and shaping perceptions in negotiations.
Okay, this sounds like we're getting into some Jedi mind trick territory.
Yeah.
What's he talking about?
He dives into prospect theory,
Okay.
a Nobel Prize-winning economic theory that explains how we process information and make decisions.
Okay.
He talks about how we can use psychological framing to our advantage.
Okay.
It's not about manipulating people,
Right.
but rather understanding how their brains work.
Okay, give me an example.
Yeah.
How can we use prospect theory in a real-world negotiation?
He uses this example of negotiating with a group of highly paid speakers who were initially demanding $2,000 per day for an event.
Okay, that's a pretty steep starting point. What did he do?
He used their extreme anchor to his advantage.
Okay.
He acknowledged their expertise and value, but then he painted a picture of the event's tight budget.
Yeah.
He essentially anchored their expectations to a much lower number.
So he's managing their perceptions right from the start,
Exactly.
making them think $2,000 just not realistic.
Exactly. And then he played on their loss aversion.
Okay.
He casually mentioned that he might have to take the opportunity to someone else.
Ooh, clever.
Right?
Now they're worried about losing out on any payment,
Yeah.
not just getting the full $2,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
And guess what? They all accepted his final offer of $500 without a single complaint.
Wow. He went from $2,000 to $500.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So is the takeaway here that we should always let the other side make the first offer?
It can be a good strategy, especially if you're not sure about their expectations,
Okay.
but you've got to be prepared for that initial shock.
Right.
If their first offer is outrageous, don't let your emotions get the best of you.
Don't get punched in the mouth.
Right?
Yeah.
Stay calm, Use those calibrated questions we talked about to gather information, and then strategically counter with a number that reflects the reality you've established.
So it's about setting the stage,
Yeah,
framing the conversation in a way that benefits you.
exactly. And Voss goes on to talk about another powerful tool, the F word.
Oh, boy. Are we allowed to say that word on this podcast?
Ha. Not that F word. I'm talking about fairness.
Oh, right. Fairness. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to feel like they're getting a fair deal.
Exactly. As humans, we're hardwired to crave fairness and reject unfairness.
Right.
There's actually brain imaging research that shows how our brains light up when we're dealing with unfair situations.
Right.
And it's not just a human thing either. Voss talks about this hilarious study with capuchin monkeys.
Monkeys. Negotiating. Tell me more.
They trained these two capuchin monkeys to perform the same task.
Okay.
But one monkey got sweet grapes as a reward,
Okay.
while the other got cucumbers.
I'm guessing the cucumber monkey wasn't too happy about that.
You guessed it. He started throwing those cucumbers back at the researchers and shaking his cage in protest.
Wow.
He was outraged.
Poor monkey. He just wanted his grapes. But seriously, this shows how deeply ingrained the concept of fairness is, even in the animal kingdom.
Exactly. It's in our DNA.
Wow.
So how do we use this in a negotiation?
Yeah.
Voss suggests incorporating the word fair into your vocabulary.
Okay.
When you're making an offer, you can say things like, I want you to feel like you're being treated fairly, or I'm confident we can come up with a solution that's fair to both of us.
It's like you're preemptively addressing their concerns about fairness,
Right.
setting the expectation that you're going to be reasonable and ethical.
Exactly.
But what if the other side is being totally unfair? Like they're lowballing you or making outrageous demands?
That's where those calibrated questions come in handy again.
Okay.
Instead of getting angry or defensive,
Yeah.
ask questions like, how did you arrive at that number?
Okay.
Or what would you consider to be a fair solution?
Right. Forces them to justify their position.
Exactly.
Maybe even realize they're being unreasonable.
Exactly. Remember, negotiation is a dance.
It is, yeah.
You lead, you follow, you adapt to the music.
Speaking of music, Voss has this interesting tip about using a late-night FM DJ voice during negotiations.
Yes.
Is he talking about playing Barry White in the background?
Huh. Not quite. It's about creating that calming,
Okay.
reassuring tone
Yeah.
that puts the other person at ease.
Okay.
Think about those late-night radio hosts with their smooth, soothing voices.
Yes. They're speaking directly to your soul.
Exactly. And that's the effect you want to create in a negotiation. You want them to feel safe, comfortable, and open to your suggestions.
So no yelling, no demanding, just calm, cool, and collected.
Exactly. Negotiation is about building bridges, not burning them.
I like that.
And speaking of building, remember that student we talked about earlier who was trying to secure funding from his MBA dean for an alumni event in Dubai?
Yes. The dean initially shot him down.
Yes.
No money, no way.
Well, instead of giving up,
Yeah.
he used those calibrated questions to understand the dean's reasoning.
Okay.
And what he found was a black swan.
Uh-huh.
The dean wasn't opposed to the event itself.
Okay.
She was worried about the optics of spending money on something lavish during budget cuts.
So it wasn't about the money, it was about the message it would send.
Right.
Like-
And once he understood that, he was able to reframe his request, proposing a more cost-effective event focused on showcasing the school's global engagement.
Okay.
And guess what? The dean approved it.
Wow. He turned a no into a yes by understanding the dean's real concern.
He found that black swan and used it to his advantage.
Yeah.
It's a great example of how understanding the other side's religion, their core values and motivations, can unlock unexpected opportunities.
Okay, I'm starting to see negotiation everywhere now.
Right.
It's like a hidden language we all speak but don't always understand.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into the philosophy of negotiation, let's bring it back down to earth in part 3
Okay.
and talk about how to actually put all this into practice. All right, we covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the power of no to the art of uncovering black swans. But now let's get practical. How do we actually use all of this in our everyday lives?
Well, one of Voss's most practical tools is something he calls the negotiation one-sheet. Think of it as your negotiation battle plan, a way to organize your thoughts and strategies before you even step into the ring.
Oh, a secret weapon. I love it. So what exactly goes on this one sheet?
First, define your goal. What do you really want to achieve in this negotiation? Be specific, be ambitious, write it down. It sounds simple, But it's amazing how many people skip this crucial step.
Right. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Yeah.
So goal setting, check. What's next?
Next, you need to think about the other side. What are their goals? What are their motivations, their fears, their hopes? Remember, it's not about assuming you know what they want. It's about gathering information and understanding their perspective.
So it's back to tactical empathy, putting ourselves in their shoes.
Exactly. Then brainstorm the labels you could use during the negotiation. Think about their potential emotions, their needs, their objections. Having these labels at the ready will help you navigate the emotional currents of the conversation.
It's like having a toolbox full of emotional wrenches ready to loosen any tight spots.
I like that. And while we're building our toolbox, let's not forget those calibrated questions. What open-ended questions can you ask to gather information, steer the conversation, and ultimately nudge them towards your desired outcome?
Right? Those how and what questions that make them do the work for us. But it's not all about smooth sailing, is it? We need to be prepared for those unexpected twists and turns.
Absolutely. That's where identifying potential black swans comes in. What hidden information might be lurking beneath the surface? What unforeseen events could throw a wrench into the works? By anticipating these possibilities, you'll be more adaptable and ready to adjust your strategy on the fly.
So it's all about preparation, anticipation, and flexibility. Having a plan, but being willing to deviate when needed. This negotiation one sheet sounds like a real game changer. But even with the best preparation, we're bound to make mistakes, right? What are some common pitfalls we should try to avoid?
One of the biggest mistakes is neglecting to prepare in the first place. People often walk into negotiations without a clear goal, a strategy, or even a basic understanding of the other side's perspective. It's like going into battle without any armor.
Yikes. That's a recipe for disaster.
Hmm.
So preparation is key. What else should we watch out for?
Another common mistake is getting too emotionally invested. When our emotions take over, we tend to make irrational decisions, say things we regret, and ultimately sabotage our own success. It's crucial to stay calm and collected, even when things get heated.
It's like that saying, don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Easier said than done sometimes, though.
Absolutely. And speaking of things we shouldn't do, remember that negotiation is a two-way street. Avoid the trap of talking too much and listening too little. To uncover those black swans and understand the other side's religion, we need to truly listen.
Right. It's back to active listening, asking those calibrated questions, and using labels to make people feel heard. But sometimes, even when we're doing everything right, we hit a roadblock. And it's tempting to just split the difference, meet in the middle. Is that always a bad idea?
Voss actually calls compromise a loser's game. It might seem like the easiest solution, but it often leaves both sides feeling dissatisfied. Remember, negotiation isn't about splitting the pie down the middle. It's about finding creative solutions that truly meet everyone's needs.
So we've got our negotiation one sheet. We're staying calm. We're listening actively. And we're not splitting the difference. What else can we do to up our negotiation game?
Voss emphasizes the importance of self-awareness. What are your strengths and weaknesses as a negotiator? Are you naturally empathetic, good at asking questions, comfortable with silence? Understanding your own style will help you leverage your strengths and work on your weaknesses.
And what if some of these skills don't come naturally?
Don't worry. The beauty of Voss's approach is that it's a skill set you can learn and develop. Practice these techniques in your everyday life, whether you're ordering coffee or resolving a conflict with your family.
So it's not just about boardrooms and million-dollar deals. It's about navigating all those little interactions that make up our life.
Exactly. Negotiation is everywhere. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. You'll never be a perfect negotiator, but you can always strive to improve.
I love that. It's about embracing the challenge and constantly learning and growing. Well, I feel like I've been given a whole new set of tools to tackle any negotiation that comes my way.
That's what we were hoping for. And remember, if you ever find yourself stuck, ask yourself, what black swan am I missing? There's always more to learn, more to uncover, and more to achieve.
This deep dive into Never Split the Difference has been truly insightful. The biggest takeaway for me is that negotiation isn't about manipulation or aggression. It's about understanding human nature, building relationships, and finding those creative solutions that benefit everyone involved.
Beautifully said. And as we wrap up, I just want to remind you that every interaction is a negotiation, whether you realize it or not. From the boardroom to the bedroom, from the marketplace to the dinner table, these skills can help you get what you want, build stronger relationships, and ultimately live a more fulfilling life.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the fascinating world of negotiation. Until next time, happy negotiating.